If you enjoyed this podcast, please consider liking, sharing, and subscribing to the channel. Sharing it with your friends and family helps spread knowledge. And when we help others grow, we grow too. Thank you so much for listening. Let's dive into the podcast. Chapter 1, The Spark in the Garage. Part 1, The Age of Digital Frontiers. In 1993, Jeff Bezos sat in his 31st floor office at D.E. Shaw, one of Wall Street's most prestigious hedge funds. The world outside looked familiar. Yellow taxis, suited executives, and the steady hum of financial markets. But inside his computer screen, something extraordinary was happening that would change everything. The internet was exploding. Not growing, not expanding, exploding. Web usage was increasing by 2,300% each year. Bezos stared at this number, reading it again and again. To put this in perspective, most successful businesses celebrated annual growth of 10 or 20%. This digital frontier was growing at rates that seemed impossible. The World Wide Web had only existed for a few years, but personal computers were flooding into American homes. Families who had never owned anything more complex than a microwave were suddenly logging onto something called the internet. College students were using email instead of phone calls. Early browsers like Mosaic were making it possible for ordinary people to click their way through websites without knowing a single line of code. Bezos watched this transformation with the trained eye of a quantitative analyst. He had built his career on recognizing patterns in numbers, and these numbers told a story unlike anything he had ever seen. This wasn't just a new technology. This was a complete shift in how people would live, work, and shop. The first e-commerce experiments were already happening. A few brave entrepreneurs had started selling simple products online. Pizza Hut was taking orders through their website. Small bookstores were creating digital catalogs. But these were scattered attempts, clumsy and limited. No one had yet built something comprehensive, something that could truly harness the power of this digital revolution. Meanwhile, the economic conditions were perfect for risk-taking. The Cold War was over, the economy was booming, and venture capital was flowing toward anything connected to this thing called the information superhighway. Young professionals like Bezos were making good money, but they were also watching 20-something programmers become millionaires overnight. Every day at D.E. Shaw, Bezos processed more data about internet growth. Every chart pointed upward. Every projection suggested that this was just the beginning. He realized he was watching the birth of an entirely new economy, one where physical location mattered less than digital presence, where a small company could reach customers anywhere in the world. The opportunity was massive, but it was also time-sensitive. This growth couldn't last forever. At some point, the internet would mature, and the early advantages would disappear. The companies that moved first would have the chance to build something enormous. The companies that waited would be left fighting for scraps. As 1993 turned into 1994, Bezos found himself facing a choice that would define the rest of his life. He could stay comfortable on Wall Street, or he could jump into this digital unknown and try to build something that had never existed before. Part 2. Bezos leaves Wall Street. The number haunted Jeff Bezos. Web usage growing at 2,300% annually meant something extraordinary was happening, something that might never happen again in his lifetime. As he sat in his corner office at D.E. Shaw in early 1994, the 30-year-old vice president faced a decision that would reshape his entire existence. Bezos had everything a Wall Street executive could want. His salary was substantial, his future secure, and his reputation as a brilliant quantitative analyst was growing. D.E. Shaw offered him the kind of career trajectory most people could only dream about. Yet the internet kept calling to him, whispering possibilities that traditional finance couldn't offer. He developed what he called his regret minimization framework. The concept was simple but profound. He imagined himself at age 80, looking back on his life. Would he regret leaving a comfortable job to chase an uncertain dream? Probably not. Would he regret never trying when he had seen the opportunity so clearly? That would haunt him forever. The framework helped him think beyond immediate comfort. At 80, he wouldn't care about the Wall Street bonus he gave up in 1994. But he would care deeply if he had watched the internet revolution from the sidelines, knowing he could have been part of building something revolutionary. Mackenzie, his wife, watched him struggle with the decision. She saw the restless energy that consumed him whenever he talked about the internet's potential. When he finally told her about his plan to start an online bookstore, her response surprised him with its simplicity. She believed in his vision and was ready to leave New York behind. Choosing what to sell online required methodical analysis. Bezos created a list of potential products, ranking them by various criteria. Books emerged as the obvious choice. Unlike music or movies, books had an enormous catalog with millions of titles. No physical bookstore could stock them all, but an online store could offer virtually unlimited selection. Books also had another advantage. People knew what they wanted when they ordered a book. They didn't need to touch or examine it first, unlike clothing or furniture. This made books perfect for mail-order sales, reducing the risk that customers would be disappointed with their purchases. The financial sacrifice was enormous. Bezos was walking away from what could have been millions in Wall Street earnings. His parents would need to invest their retirement savings to help fund his startup. The comfortable predictability of his hedge fund career would be replaced by the chaos of entrepreneurship. But as spring turned to summer in 1994, Bezos felt the weight of time pressing against him. Every day he delayed was a day someone else might seize the opportunity. The internet wouldn't wait for him to feel completely ready. The moment of final commitment came quietly. Bezos submitted his resignation to D.E. Shaw, effective immediately. He was leaving behind everything familiar to chase something that existed only in his imagination. The decision was made, and there would be no turning back. Part 3. Cadillac across America. The summer heat pressed against the windshield as Mackenzie Bezos gripped the steering wheel of their silver Cadillac, heading west on Interstate 80. In the passenger seat, her husband Jeff hunched over a laptop computer, fingers flying across the keys as America rolled past their windows. They had loaded their few possessions into the car and left their comfortable life in New York behind. But this was no ordinary cross-country move. Jeff had quit his job without knowing exactly where they were going. Seattle seemed like the right destination, but the business plan existed only in fragments scattered across his mind. As Mackenzie navigated through Pennsylvania, then Ohio, Jeff opened a new document on his laptop screen. He began typing furiously, trying to capture every idea before it slipped away. The laptop balanced precariously on his knees as he outlined his vision for an online bookstore. He calculated market sizes, estimated startup costs, and researched potential competitors. When they stopped for gas, Jeff would call book distributors from payphones, asking about shipping times and wholesale prices. Each conversation added new details to his growing business plan. Mile after mile, the company began to take shape on the laptop screen. Jeff researched hundreds of potential names, typing and deleting possibilities as they drove through the heartland. He wanted something that started with A to appear first in alphabetical listings. He considered abracadabra, but worried people might misspell it. Awake sounded too sleepy. Then he found Amazon in the dictionary and read the definition aloud to Mackenzie. The world's largest river seemed perfect for what he hoped would become the world's largest bookstore. Seattle wasn't chosen randomly. Jeff had done his research during late nights at D.E. Shaw. The city offered a growing pool of programming talent from Microsoft and the University of Washington. More importantly, it sat near Roseburg, Oregon, home to a major book distributor. This proximity could mean faster shipping times and lower costs. crucial advantages for a startup competing against established chains. As they crossed into Colorado, Jeff refined his customer service philosophy on the laptop. He typed notes about making the buying experience simple and pleasant, about customer reviews and recommendations. The Rocky Mountains provided a dramatic backdrop as he calculated how many books they would need to sell just to break even. The Cadillac became their mobile office and conference room. During rest stops, they spread printed pages across picnic tables, with Jeff explaining his vision, while Mackenzie asked practical questions about everything from inventory to insurance. She had left her job at D.E. Shaw too, believing in her husband's dream enough to risk their financial security. By the time they reached the West Coast, the business plan had grown from scattered thoughts into a comprehensive document. Jeff had identified his target market, outlined his technology needs, and calculated startup expenses down to the last dollar. The garage in Bellevue was waiting, soon to become the birthplace of what would grow into a digital empire. The cross-country drive represented more than a change of address. It marked the complete transformation from Wall Street executive to entrepreneur, with each mile bringing Jeff closer to turning his internet bookstore from an idea on a laptop screen into reality. Part 4. The Garage Office in Bellevue. The garage in Bellevue looked nothing like the birthplace of a future empire. Jeff Bezos had rented this modest space in his suburban home, and it would serve as Amazon's first headquarters. The concrete floor was cold, the lighting harsh, and the space cramped. But for Bezos and his growing team, this garage represented unlimited possibility. The first challenge was basic: furniture. Office desks cost hundreds of dollars each, money the startup didn't want to spend. Bezos had a better idea. He drove to Home Depot and bought solid core doors and 2x4 lumber. Back in the garage, he and his team assembled makeshift desks that cost $60 each. These door desks became legendary, a symbol of Amazon's scrappy beginnings and resourceful culture. Shel Kappan arrived as employee number 1, Amazon's first programmer. Bezos had convinced Kappan to leave his comfortable job in California to join this garage startup. Kappan brought crucial technical skills that Bezos desperately needed. Together, they began building the website that would sell books to anyone with an internet connection. The technical challenges were immense. In 1994, e-commerce barely existed. Credit card processing online was complicated and risky. Website hosting was unreliable. Every piece of technology had to be built from scratch or carefully adapted. Kappan worked long hours coding the database systems that would track inventory and process orders. Bezos handled the business side, constantly refining their approach. Money was tight from the beginning. Bezos had invested his own savings, but that wouldn't last long. His parents, Mike and Jackie Bezos, made a crucial decision that would change their lives forever. They invested $300,000 in their son's internet bookstore, including that initial $10,000 that kept the lights on. They didn't fully understand the technology, but they believed in Jeff. The garage quickly transformed into a chaotic workspace. Computers hummed constantly, boxes of inventory stacked against walls. The small team worked around the clock, debugging code and preparing for launch. When orders started coming in, they processed everything by hand. Jeff personally drove packages to the post office each evening. Bezos insisted on excellence from day one. Customer service became an obsession. Every email received a personal response. Every order was double-checked. This attention to detail cost time and money, but Bezos believed it would build customer loyalty that established bookstores couldn't match. The contrast with traditional bookstores was stark. While Barnes & Noble operated massive retail locations with thousands of employees, Amazon ran from a garage with a handful of people. But this small team moved faster than any big corporation could. They made decisions in minutes, not months. They adapted their website daily based on customer feedback. As 1995 approached, the pressure mounted. the website was nearly ready. Early testing showed promise. The door desks were covered with notes and plans for launch day. Everything they had worked for would soon face the ultimate test: real customers spending real money in their digital bookstore. Part 5. Opening the store to the world. The morning of July 16th, 1995, arrived with a mix of excitement and terror in the Bellevue garage. Jeff Bezos and his tiny team had spent months preparing for this moment. Today, Amazon.com would officially open its doors to the world. The website was ready, but everything else felt improvised and fragile. Shel Caffin, the company's first programmer, refreshed the server screens constantly. They had tested the site extensively, but launching to real customers felt different. One wrong line of code could crash everything. Bezos paced between the makeshift desks, checking order processing systems one final time. His parents' $10,000 investment and everyone's careers rode on what happened next. The first order arrived within hours. John Wainwright from Sunnyvale, California, ordered a book about artificial intelligence. The small team cheered, but celebration quickly turned to frantic activity. Someone had to find the book, package it, and ship it. The garage operation that seemed efficient during testing suddenly felt chaotic. Chapter 2. Surviving the dot-com Wild West. Part 1. IPO on Wall Street. By spring 1997, Jeff Bezos faced a critical decision that would forever change Amazon's trajectory. The company was burning through cash at an alarming rate, expanding its operations and fighting for market share in the rapidly growing internet economy. Private investors had provided early funding, but Amazon needed serious money to compete with established retailers who were beginning to take notice of online commerce. The solution seemed obvious yet terrifying: take the company public. The decision to go public after just 3 years of operation was bold, perhaps reckless by traditional standards. Most companies waited longer to establish stable revenue streams and proven business models. But the internet boom was creating new rules, and Bezos understood that timing mattered more than traditional metrics. If Amazon waited too long, competitors might seize the first-mover advantage that had made the company successful. The window for internet IPOs was wide open, and investor appetite for technology stocks seemed insatiable. The roadshow began in earnest, with Bezos and his team traveling from New York to San Francisco, presenting to skeptical institutional investors who struggled to understand Amazon's business model. Many investors had never bought a book online, let alone understood how a company could lose money on every sale, yet still be considered valuable. Bezos pitched Amazon not as a bookstore, but as a technology company that happened to sell books. This distinction puzzled many traditional investors, who evaluated companies based on physical assets and established profit margins. The presentations revealed the harsh reality of Wall Street scrutiny. Investors peppered Bezos with pointed questions about profitability timelines, competitive advantages, and scalability. How could Amazon compete with established retailers like Barnes & Noble, who had deeper pockets and physical presence? Why should anyone pay premium prices for a company that had never turned a profit? Bezos answered with characteristic confidence, explaining how the internet would transform retail and how Amazon's early investment in technology would create lasting competitive advantages. On May 15, 1997, Amazon went public at $18 per share, raising $54 million and giving the company a market value of approximately $438 million. The stock immediately became volatile, swinging wildly as investors tried to determine what an online bookstore was actually worth. Within weeks, the share price had doubled, then fallen back, creating the kind of roller coaster performance that would characterize Amazon stock for years to come. The IPO brought both opportunity and burden. The capital allowed Amazon to expand its operations, build new distribution centers, and hire talented employees who might otherwise have joined more established companies. But public company status also meant quarterly earnings calls, SEC filings, and constant pressure to show immediate results. Every 3 months, Bezos would have to explain to analysts why Amazon was spending money on long-term investments rather than focusing on short-term profits. The transition created internal tensions as well. Employees who had joined a scrappy startup now found themselves working for a public company with stock options that fluctuated dramatically. The media attention intensified, bringing both positive coverage of Amazon's growth and critical analysis of its financial performance. Bezos began writing annual letters to shareholders, establishing a tradition of explaining Amazon's long-term strategy and asking for patience as the company built sustainable competitive advantages. This public debut marked the end of Amazon's quiet startup phase and the beginning of its life under the microscope of public markets, setting the stage for even more ambitious expansion plans that would test investor patience to its limits. Part 2. Beyond Books, the grand expansion, with fresh capital from its public offering burning through the company coffers. Amazon stood at a crossroads in late 1997. Bezos had always dreamed bigger than books, and now he had the resources to prove it. The decision to expand beyond literature into music, videos, and electronics wasn't just ambitious, it was audacious. The transformation began with music CDs in June 1998. Amazon's team worked frantically to build new catalog systems that could handle hundreds of thousands of titles instead of mere books. The technical challenges were immense. Every new product category required different supplier relationships, storage requirements, and shipping considerations. A book might survive a small drop during packing, but a CD would skip forever. Customer response was electric. Music sales exploded, validating Bezos's theory that people wanted convenience above all else. Encouraged, Amazon quickly added videos, then electronics, then toys. Each expansion brought new complexities. Electronics required detailed specifications and compatibility information. Toys had seasonal demands that strained inventory planning. Traditional retailers watched with growing alarm. Tower Records saw their music sales threatened. Circuit City worried about electronics competition. These established players had decades of supplier relationships and physical stores, yet somehow, this Seattle startup was stealing customers with nothing but a website and warehouses. The launch of Z-Shops and auctions in 1999 marked Amazon's boldest experiment yet. Instead of just selling products directly, Amazon would become a marketplace where anyone could sell anything. The vision was intoxicating. Imagine every small business and individual seller using Amazon's platform, paying fees for the privilege. But the technical reality proved brutal. The website groaned under millions of new product listings. Search results became cluttered with duplicate items and questionable sellers. Customer service complaints multiplied. As buyers encountered problems with third-party merchants Amazon couldn't directly control. Behind the scenes, the company was hemorrhaging money. Each new category required massive inventory investments. Warehouses needed expansion and specialized equipment. The technology infrastructure demanded constant upgrades to handle increasing traffic and complexity. Every sale generated revenue, but the costs of expansion often exceeded those gains. Competitors began taking notice in ways that weren't entirely welcome. Established retailers started investing heavily in their own websites, determined not to cede the internet to Amazon. Barnes & Noble hired top technology talent and poured money into online operations. Best Buy began offering electronics online with the advantage of physical stores for returns and support. Wall Street analysts grew increasingly nervous. Amazon's revenue was skyrocketing, but so were its losses. The company was spending enormous sums to build something unprecedented, a digital store that could sell everything to everyone. Investors began asking uncomfortable questions about when this experiment would actually make money. Bezos remained confident, arguing that Amazon was building the infrastructure for long-term dominance. Each new category brought more customers, and those customers often bought multiple types of products. The data showed that customers who bought books and music were more loyal and spent more money over time. This expansion strategy separated Amazon from every other online retailer, but it also created unprecedented risks that would soon be tested by market forces beyond anyone's control. Part 3. The Amazon.com Paradox. By 1999, Amazon had created something unprecedented in retail history. The company was growing faster than anyone had imagined possible, adding millions of customers and expanding into dozens of new product categories. Revenue climbed from $148 million to $610 million in just 2 years. Every metric looked spectacular except the most important one: profit. Amazon was losing money on nearly every transaction. The company spent $1.20 for every dollar of revenue it brought in during these explosive growth years. While traditional retailers operated on thin but positive margins, Amazon seemed to operate in an alternate reality where growth mattered more than basic arithmetic. The more successful the company became at attracting customers, the more money it hemorrhaged. The economics were brutal. Amazon sold books for $20 that cost them $12 to buy from publishers, which seemed healthy until you added everything else. The massive warehouses needed to stock millions of items. The sophisticated computer systems required to track inventory across continents. The customer service representatives answering phones around the clock. The shipping subsidies that made free delivery possible. When accountants tallied all these costs, Amazon was essentially paying customers to shop with them. Wall Street analysts watched these numbers with growing alarm. Traditional retail wisdom suggested that companies should achieve profitability quickly, then reinvest those profits into growth. Amazon was doing the opposite, spending future profits that might never materialize while accumulating losses that grew larger each quarter. The business press began using terms like Amazon bomb to describe what many viewed as an inevitable collapse. Bezos defended this strategy with religious conviction. He argued that online retail was fundamentally different from traditional retail, requiring massive upfront investments that would pay dividends later. Amazon was building infrastructure that could support billions in sales, not just millions. The warehouses, technology systems, and customer relationships were assets that competitors couldn't match, even if they didn't show up as profits on quarterly statements. Investors grew increasingly nervous as Amazon's losses mounted. The company burned through cash at an alarming rate, spending money on expansion faster than it could raise new capital. Some shareholders questioned whether Bezos understood basic business principles. Others worried they had invested in a brilliant engineer who lacked the discipline to run a profitable company. The financial paradox created daily tension within Amazon itself. Employees watched the stock price fluctuate wildly based on quarterly earnings reports that consistently disappointed Wall Street. Talented people left for competitors offering more stable career prospects. Yet customer satisfaction scores continued climbing, and market share grew in every category Amazon entered. This contradiction between financial performance and market success would soon face its ultimate test. The broader technology market was beginning to question whether any internet company could actually make money, and Amazon's mounting losses made it a perfect target for skeptics who believed the entire digital revolution was built on false promises rather than sound business fundamentals. Part 4. The dot-com bubble bursts. The first warning signs appeared in late 1999, but few investors paid attention. The internet economy had become a gold rush, where companies with no profits commanded billion-dollar valuations. Then March 2000 arrived like a financial earthquake that shattered everything. The Nasdaq Composite Index, heavy with technology stocks, began falling on March 10th and didn't stop. In just 6 weeks, it lost nearly 40% of its value. Investors who had poured money into dot-com companies suddenly realized that most of these businesses had no clear path to profitability. Panic selling swept through the market as billions of dollars in paper wealth vanished. Amazon's stock price became a terrifying roller coaster. From its peak of over $100 per share in late 1999, it plummeted towards single digits. Wall Street analysts who had once praised the company's growth now questioned whether it could survive. The media, which had celebrated the dot-com boom, turned vicious. Headlines declared Amazon bomb and predicted its imminent collapse. The crash created a brutal environment for internet companies. Pets.com, once worth hundreds of millions, shut down completely. Webvan, the grocery delivery service, burned through $830 million before dying. Cosmo.com, eToys, and dozens of other high-profile companies either closed or sold themselves for pennies on the dollar. The easy money that had funded the digital revolution disappeared overnight. Amazon faced its darkest hour. The company was still losing money on operations, burning through cash reserves while revenue growth slowed dramatically. Jeff Bezos watched competitors fold one by one, knowing Amazon could be next. The board meetings grew tense as directors questioned whether the company should abandon its expansion plans and focus solely on survival. Drastic measures became necessary. Amazon closed 2 distribution centers and laid off 1,300 employees, roughly 15% of its workforce. The company froze hiring, cut marketing budgets, and delayed new projects. Every expense came under scrutiny as managers searched for ways to reduce costs without destroying the business. Yet Amazon possessed advantages that many competitors lacked. Unlike pure dot-com companies selling single products, Amazon had diversified across books, music, videos, and electronics. This variety provided some stability when individual categories struggled. The company's international operations in the UK and Germany generated additional revenue streams that purely domestic competitors couldn't access. Bezos refused to panic despite the chaos around him. In meetings with investors and employees, he maintained his long-term vision while acknowledging the immediate crisis. He formed strategic partnerships with other struggling companies, acquiring smaller competitors at bargain prices and gaining access to their customer bases. When the market valued Amazon at less than its annual revenue, Bezos saw opportunity rather than disaster. The crash separated companies with real businesses from those built on speculation alone. Amazon's survival depended on proving it belonged in the first category, transforming from a growth story into a sustainable business that could generate actual profits. Part 5. Bezos's long-term gamble. Jeff Bezos sat in his office, surrounded by newspaper clippings with headlines screaming Amazon.bomb and retail apocalypse. The dot-com crash had wiped out hundreds of internet companies, and Wall Street analysts were placing bets on when Amazon would join them. Every quarterly earnings call brought the same relentless questions about profitability. Every investor meeting demanded immediate returns, and every financial newspaper questioned whether the company could survive another year of losses. The pressure was enormous. Board members pulled Bezos aside after meetings, their voices tense with concern. The market wants profits now, they warned. We can't keep bleeding money forever. Employees watched nervously as competitors collapsed around them, wondering if their stock options would become worthless paper. The company's stock price had fallen from over $100 to barely $6, making Amazon seem like just another casualty of internet excess. But Bezos refused to bend. In meeting after meeting, he defended what others called madness. While competitors frantically cut costs and abandoned expansion plans, Amazon continued investing in technology that wouldn't pay off for years. The company kept building massive warehouses when others were closing them. They hired software engineers while competitors fired them. Every dollar spent on long-term infrastructure was a dollar not contributing to immediate profits, making the quarterly numbers look worse. The philosophical battle played out in boardrooms and shareholder letters. Traditional retail wisdom said, focus on margins, cut costs, show profits quickly. Bezos preached a different religion. Customer obsession would eventually create unstoppable competitive advantages. He spent hours crafting annual letters to shareholders, explaining why Amazon needed patience rather than pressure. We will continue to make investment decisions in light of long-term market leadership considerations rather than short-term profitability considerations, he wrote, knowing many readers would roll their eyes. Internal debates grew heated. Finance teams presented alternatives that could deliver immediate profits by reducing customer benefits or cutting research spending. Marketing departments argued for raising prices to improve margins. Operations leaders suggested slowing expansion to preserve cash. Each proposal represented a path toward conventional business practices and away from Bezos's vision. The CEO's response was always the same: think bigger and longer. While rivals focused on quarterly earnings, Amazon built systems for handling millions of customers and products. They invested in recommendation algorithms when others relied on simple catalogs. They created customer service capabilities that exceeded expectations, while competitors cut support costs. Every decision prioritized customer experience over short-term financial performance. This patient capital approach created sustainable advantages that would later prove decisive. The technology infrastructure built during lean years could handle explosive growth when markets recovered. The customer loyalty earned through consistent service created repeat business that competitors couldn't match. The operational capabilities developed during difficult times positioned Amazon to expand rapidly when conditions improved. As quarters passed and losses mounted, Bezos's gamble looked increasingly dangerous. Yet beneath the financial pressure, something powerful was taking shape, a business model that would redefine retail entirely. Chapter 3: Reinventing the Machine, Part 1: The Logistics Revolution. The year 2000 brought a crisis that would reshape Amazon forever. As dot-com companies collapsed and investors fled, Jeff Bezos faced a stark choice. Most online retailers relied on third-party companies to store and ship their products, a model that seemed financially sensible. But Bezos saw something different. He believed that controlling every step of getting products to customers would become Amazon's greatest weapon. The decision seemed almost reckless. Building warehouses required massive upfront costs that Amazon could barely afford. Traditional retailers like Walmart had spent decades perfecting their operations. Why would a struggling online bookstore think it could do better? But Bezos understood that speed and reliability would determine who survived the internet age. The first Amazon fulfillment center opened in Seattle, a modest facility that would become the template for revolution. Inside, workers picked books from shelves and packed them into boxes, just like any warehouse. But Amazon's engineers were already planning something far more sophisticated. They studied every movement, timed every process, and designed systems that could handle millions of orders. Computer screens guided workers through the most efficient routes. Scanning devices tracked inventory in real time. Conveyor belts moved packages at calculated speeds. What looked like organized chaos was actually a carefully orchestrated machine designed to eliminate wasted seconds. Amazon wasn't just storing products. It was reinventing how warehouses worked. The real breakthrough came with location strategy. Instead of operating from one central facility, Amazon built fulfillment centers across the country. A customer in Chicago could receive a book from Illinois rather than Washington State. Delivery times dropped from weeks to days. This geographic chess game required enormous capital, but created an almost insurmountable advantage over competitors. As Amazon's network expanded, something unexpected happened. The company realized it could offer the same services to other businesses. Small companies could use Amazon's warehouses to store their products and ship to customers. This created a new revenue stream while maximizing the efficiency of Amazon's growing infrastructure. The investments seemed never-ending. Robotic systems began moving entire shelves to workers instead of workers walking to shelves. Algorithms predicted demand and positioned inventory closer to likely buyers. Amazon even started experimenting with its own delivery trucks, challenging FedEx and UPS on their home ground. Critics called it wasteful spending that would bankrupt the company. But customers noticed the difference. Orders arrived faster and more reliably than from any competitor. This operational excellence created fierce loyalty that translated into repeat purchases and positive word-of-mouth marketing. By transforming logistics from a necessary cost into a competitive advantage, Amazon had built something rivals couldn't easily copy. The infrastructure that once seemed financially dangerous had become the foundation for everything that would follow. Part 2: AWS, an experiment that changed the world. Amazon's servers were constantly crashing. By 2004, the company's explosive growth had pushed its technology infrastructure to breaking points. Every holiday season brought system failures that cost millions in lost sales. The engineering teams spent their days fighting fires instead of building new features. Something had to change. The solution seemed obvious at first. Amazon needed bigger, better servers and more reliable systems to handle growing traffic. But as engineers analyzed the problems, they discovered something unexpected. The issue wasn't just about more powerful machines. It was about how those machines worked together. Traditional approaches meant buying expensive hardware that sat mostly unused. During normal times, Amazon servers operated at perhaps 20% capacity. But during traffic spikes, everything would overload and crash. The company was paying for resources it couldn't use efficiently. A small team of engineers began experimenting with a different approach. Instead of treating computing power as fixed hardware, what if they could make it flexible? What if processing power, storage, and networking could be divided into smaller pieces and allocated exactly when needed? This wasn't entirely new thinking. Other technology companies had similar internal systems, but Amazon's engineers took the concept further. They built services that could automatically scale up during busy periods and scale down when demand dropped. Instead of maintaining massive unused capacity, they created systems that adapted in real time. The breakthrough came when someone asked a crucial question. If Amazon could solve these problems for itself, why not offer the same solutions to other companies? Every growing business faced similar challenges. They needed reliable computing power but couldn't afford massive infrastructure investments. The idea seemed almost absurd. Amazon sold books and consumer goods. Why would other companies trust their critical systems to a retailer? The internal debates were intense. Resources spent on this experiment could go toward expanding the core business, but the potential was enormous. Instead of building servers for peak Amazon traffic and letting them sit idle most of the time, those same machines could serve other customers. The fixed costs of infrastructure could be spread across many users. Both Amazon and its customers would benefit from better efficiency. In 2006, Amazon quietly launched its first web services. Simple Storage Service offered businesses reliable file storage without massive upfront investments. Elastic Compute Cloud let companies rent processing power by the hour instead of buying expensive servers. The initial response was lukewarm. Large corporations preferred their own data centers. They worried about security and reliability from an online retailer. But smaller companies and startups saw immediate value. They could build sophisticated applications without enormous capital requirements. As more businesses adopted these services, Amazon kept adding new features. Database services, networking tools, and specialized computing options expanded the platform. Each new service made the offering more compelling and harder for competitors to match. What started as an internal infrastructure project had become something much larger. Amazon Web Services was creating an entirely new industry. The company that began by selling books was now selling the fundamental building blocks of the digital economy. Part 3. The Kindle Gamble. In the spring of 2004, Jeff Bezos called a secret meeting that would change how the world reads books. Amazon had conquered online retail, but Bezos saw a bigger opportunity brewing in the digital revolution. People were carrying iPods filled with thousands of songs. Why couldn't they do the same with books? The book industry operated on centuries-old principles. Publishers printed physical books, shipped them to stores, and hoped customers would buy them. Digital books existed, but they required computers and clunky software. Most people still preferred paper pages they could hold and flip through. Bezos believed this preference came from poor execution, not fundamental resistance to change. Amazon assembled a small team under strict secrecy. They called the project Fiona, after a character in a fantasy novel. The goal seemed simple. Create a device that felt as natural as reading a physical book, but offered the convenience of carrying an entire library. The execution proved anything but simple. Traditional screens hurt readers' eyes during long sessions. The team experimented with electronic ink technology that mimicked actual paper. This required no backlighting and consumed minimal battery power. But e-ink displays updated slowly and couldn't show color. Every design decision involved compromises between functionality and user experience. The hardest battles happened in boardrooms, not laboratories. Book publishers viewed Amazon with deep suspicion. The company had already pressured them on pricing for physical books. Now Amazon wanted digital rights to their entire catalogs. Publishers worried about piracy, pricing control, and Amazon's growing power over book distribution. Negotiations stretched for months. Publishers demanded high prices for digital books, sometimes matching hardcover costs. They insisted on restrictive licensing terms that prevented customers from sharing or reselling digital purchases. Amazon agreed to many demands, prioritizing content availability over immediate profitability. The Kindle team faced technical challenges that seemed impossible. The device needed wireless connectivity to download books instantly. But cellular carriers charged high fees for data plans. Amazon negotiated a revolutionary deal with Sprint. Customers could download books anywhere without monthly fees or contracts. Amazon would absorb all connectivity costs. This decision revealed Bezos's core strategy. Amazon would sell Kindle hardware at a loss and make money from book sales. The company had used similar tactics with web services, investing heavily upfront to capture long-term value. Wall Street analysts questioned this approach, but Amazon had learned to ignore short-term criticism. By late 2007, the first Kindle was ready. The device looked utilitarian compared to Apple's sleek products, but it delivered on its promise. Users could download books in under a minute from anywhere with cellular coverage. The screen looked remarkably similar to printed pages. Battery life lasted for days, not hours. The Kindle launched on November 19, 2007, priced at $399. Amazon stocked 90,000 titles at launch, a fraction of books in print, but enough for most readers. Within hours, the entire initial inventory sold out. Demand far exceeded Amazon's most optimistic projections. Early adopters faced skepticism from friends and family. Many people couldn't imagine preferring a digital screen over physical books. But Kindle users discovered unexpected benefits. They could adjust font sizes for easier reading. They could search entire libraries instantly. Travel became easier without heavy bags full of books. Publishers watched nervously as digital sales began growing. Amazon's willingness to lose money on hardware while controlling the reading experience gave the company enormous leverage. The Kindle had transformed Amazon from a book retailer into a platform controlling how millions of people consumed content. This digital reading revolution would soon expand beyond books, positioning Amazon as the gatekeeper for all forms of digital media consumption. Part 4: Amazon Prime: Loyalty Beyond Commerce. Jeff Bezos stood before his executive team in 2005 with an idea that seemed to contradict basic business logic. Amazon would charge customers $79 annually for unlimited free 2-day shipping on most purchases. His colleagues saw immediate problems. The company would lose money on every shipment. Customers might abuse the service. The math appeared impossible. Bezos believed otherwise. He understood that removing shipping costs would change how people shopped. Instead of batching purchases to justify delivery fees, Prime members would order freely. A book today, batteries tomorrow, a birthday gift next week. Each order would feel effortless because the shipping was already paid for. The financial risks were enormous. 2-day shipping cost Amazon between $8 and $15 per package. Prime members would need to place dozens of orders annually for the program to break even. Internal projections showed millions in potential losses. Yet Bezos saw something his team initially missed. Free shipping would create psychological ownership. Once customers paid the annual fee, they would feel compelled to use the service frequently to justify their investment. Amazon's logistics network made Prime possible. The company had spent years building fulfillment centers across the country, positioning inventory close to major population centers. This infrastructure investment, previously seen as costly overhead, suddenly became Prime's foundation. Amazon could promise 2-day delivery because products were already nearby. The launch faced immediate skepticism. Customers questioned whether unlimited shipping was truly unlimited. Analysts predicted financial disaster. Competitors dismissed Prime as an expensive gimmick that would drain Amazon's resources without building meaningful competitive advantage. Early adopters proved the strategy correct. Prime members began ordering items they previously would have purchased in physical stores. Light bulbs, cleaning supplies, and personal care products moved from supermarket shopping lists to Amazon orders. The service changed customer behavior exactly as Bezos had envisioned. Members ordered more frequently, spent more annually, and rarely shopped elsewhere for products Amazon carried. Amazon gradually expanded Prime benefits beyond shipping. Digital photo storage, streaming music, and exclusive deals transformed the membership from shipping service to lifestyle platform. Each new benefit deepened customer loyalty and increased switching costs. Canceling Prime meant losing access to an entire ecosystem of services. The program created what economists call a moat around Amazon's business. Prime members rarely compared prices with competitors because the perceived value of free shipping made Amazon automatically seem cheaper. Customer acquisition costs dropped as satisfied members recruited friends and family. Retention rates exceeded 90% annually. By 2010, Prime had fundamentally altered retail expectations. Customers began expecting fast, free delivery from all online retailers. Amazon had successfully redefined convenience in e-commerce. The membership model that initially seemed financially reckless had become the company's most powerful customer retention tool. Prime's success validated Bezos's long-term thinking approach. Short-term losses had generated lasting competitive advantages. The program would soon expand internationally and add video streaming, transforming Amazon from online retailer into comprehensive digital services provider. Part 5. The financial turnaround. By 2010, Amazon had built something remarkable, a loyal customer base through Prime membership. But loyalty alone wouldn't satisfy investors demanding profits. For over a decade, Jeff Bezos had preached patience while Amazon poured money into warehouses, technology, and expansion. Wall Street grew tired of waiting. The company needed to prove its business model could actually make money. The transformation began quietly in Amazon's fulfillment centers. Years of investment in warehouse automation and logistics technology started paying dividends. Robots moved inventory faster than humans ever could. Sophisticated algorithms predicted demand patterns, reducing storage costs and speeding deliveries. What once seemed like endless spending on infrastructure now generated measurable efficiency gains. Amazon Web Services emerged as an unexpected profit engine. The cloud computing division, born from Amazon's own technical needs, attracted businesses seeking reliable, scalable computing power. AWS margins far exceeded retail operations. Companies like Netflix and Airbnb built their entire operations on Amazon's cloud platform. Each new customer added high-margin revenue with minimal additional costs. The third-party marketplace transformed Amazon's financial picture. Instead of buying and selling products directly, Amazon collected fees from merchants using its platform. These transactions required no inventory investment or storage costs. Commission fees, fulfillment charges, and advertising revenues flowed straight to Amazon's bottom line. Millions of independent sellers turned Amazon into a profitable middleman. Prime membership fees created predictable revenue streams. Members paid annual subscriptions for shipping benefits, generating cash upfront before making purchases. This subscription income helped offset delivery costs while encouraging more frequent orders. Higher order frequency spread fixed costs across more transactions, improving overall profitability. Scale advantages finally materialized across Amazon's operations. Bulk purchasing power reduced product costs. Massive data collection enabled precise demand forecasting. Automated systems handled customer service inquiries without human intervention. Fixed costs like technology development and warehouse construction spread across billions of transactions, dramatically lowering per-unit expenses. Financial markets began recognizing Amazon's transformation. Stock prices climbed as quarterly reports showed consistent profits. Analysts who once criticized Amazon's spending sprees acknowledged the wisdom of long-term thinking. The company's market value soared past traditional retailers who had mocked Amazon's early losses. Profitability unleashed Amazon's next phase of expansion. Cash flows funded international growth, new product categories, and ambitious technology projects. The company could now invest aggressively without relying on external funding. Financial stability provided freedom to pursue even bolder experiments in artificial intelligence, drone delivery, and physical retail stores. Amazon had proven that sacrificing short-term profits for long-term advantages could create sustained competitive dominance. The patient capital strategy had finally vindicated itself through consistent financial performance. Chapter 4. Conquering Global Markets, Part 1. From Store to Marketplace. By 2000, Jeff Bezos faced a critical decision that would reshape Amazon forever. The company had proven it could sell books online, but competitors were emerging everywhere. Traditional retailers were building their own websites, and new internet companies were targeting specific product categories. Instead of fighting each competitor individually, Bezos chose a radical approach. Invite them onto Amazon's platform. The marketplace concept seemed counterintuitive. Why help competitors sell products on your own website? The answer lay in mathematics and customer psychology. Amazon's internal data showed that customers wanted more choices, not just Amazon's selection. Every product category Amazon couldn't stock represented lost sales and disappointed visitors who might shop elsewhere. The marketplace launch in November 2000 started small. A handful of sellers offered used books alongside Amazon's new copies. Customers could compare prices instantly, seeing Amazon's offering next to cheaper alternatives. This transparency worried Amazon's executives, but something unexpected happened. Total sales increased. Customers bought more frequently because they found what they wanted, even if Amazon didn't sell it directly. Building the seller platform required new technology and services. Amazon created tools for inventory management, payment processing, and customer communication. Sellers could list products, track sales, and handle customer service through Amazon's interface. The company invested millions in systems that competitors would use, but each transaction generated fees and valuable data. The network effects became apparent quickly. More sellers attracted more customers seeking variety and competitive prices. More customers attracted additional sellers wanting access to that traffic. Amazon's role shifted from retailer to platform operator, collecting fees from transactions while avoiding inventory costs and risks. Product selection exploded without corresponding warehouse investments. Amazon's catalog grew from thousands to millions of items, covering categories the company had never considered stocking. Electronics, clothing, home goods, and specialty items appeared daily as sellers identified profitable opportunities. Revenue streams diversified beyond product margins. Amazon earned fees for listing items, commissions on successful sales, and payments for additional services like fulfillment and advertising. Sellers paid for premium placement and marketing tools, creating new income sources that required minimal infrastructure investment. The competitive advantage compounded over time. Amazon could offer both its own products and marketplace alternatives, giving customers complete choice while maintaining control over the shopping experience. When Amazon's prices were higher, marketplace sellers provided alternatives. When marketplace prices rose, Amazon could compete with its own inventory. This transformation established the foundation for Amazon's global dominance. The marketplace model would prove essential as the company expanded internationally, providing local sellers immediate access while Amazon learned new markets. The platform strategy created sustainable competitive advantages that traditional retailers struggled to replicate, setting the stage for Amazon's next phase of international growth. Part 2. International Frontiers. The platform that had redefined American commerce now faced its greatest test, the world beyond its borders. In 1998, Amazon made its first international move, acquiring 2 German companies and launching Amazon.co.uk. This wasn't just expansion. It was the beginning of a complex dance between global ambition and local realities. Europe became Amazon's testing ground for international strategy. The UK welcomed Amazon's familiar approach with open arms. British customers appreciated the vast selection and reliable delivery that had made Amazon famous in America. Germany proved more challenging. Local competitors like Otto and traditional mail-order companies had deep roots. German customers valued quality and reliability over speed and convenience. Amazon had to adapt, offering more premium products and building trust through consistent service. The company learned quickly that success in one market didn't guarantee success in another. France demanded different payment methods. Italian customers wanted to touch products before buying. Spanish consumers shopped differently than Americans. Each market required careful study and adaptation while maintaining Amazon's core promise of customer obsession. Asia presented even greater challenges. Japan's complex distribution networks and strong local companies like Rakuten created fierce competition. Amazon Japan struggled initially, burning through cash while learning to work with local suppliers and customs. The company discovered that its American playbook needed significant rewrites for Japanese business culture. China became Amazon's most humbling experience. Entering in 2004 through acquisition, Amazon found itself competing against Alibaba and local champions who understood Chinese consumers better. Payment systems worked differently. Logistics networks followed different patterns. Consumer behavior defied Amazon's expectations. Despite massive investments, Amazon's China operation never gained meaningful market share. Local competitors moved faster, adapted quicker, and connected more deeply with Chinese shoppers. India offered different lessons. Amazon arrived in 2013 facing Flipkart, a homegrown competitor that had studied Amazon's playbook carefully. The Indian market demanded cash-on-delivery payments, regional language support, and deep local partnerships. Amazon invested billions, building warehouses and delivery networks from scratch. The battle for India became a war of attrition between two well-funded giants. Each market taught Amazon valuable lessons about localization. Success required more than translating websites and accepting local currency. It demanded understanding local shopping habits, building relationships with regional suppliers, and navigating complex regulatory environments. Some markets embraced Amazon's efficiency. Others preferred personal service and local relationships. The international expansion revealed both Amazon's strengths and limitations. Its technology platform could scale globally. Its logistics expertise transferred across borders. Its customer-focused culture resonated universally. But local competitors often understood their markets better, moved faster on regulations, and built deeper community connections. Amazon's global journey transformed the company from American success story into worldwide platform. The lessons learned in international markets would prove invaluable as Amazon prepared to launch its most ambitious project yet, building the invisible infrastructure that would power the entire internet. Part 3. The cloud becomes a kingdom. Amazon's cloud journey began with a practical problem. By the early 2000s, Amazon's engineers had built powerful computing systems to handle massive holiday shopping sprees. During quiet periods, these expensive servers sat mostly empty. Jeff Bezos saw opportunity where others saw waste. The company started selling access to its spare computing power. Developers could rent Amazon's servers by the hour instead of buying expensive hardware. This simple idea would reshape the entire technology industry. Amazon Web Services launched quietly in 2006 with just a few basic offerings. Most technology companies ignored this new business. They dismissed cloud computing as too risky for serious applications. Who would trust their critical data to servers they couldn't see or control? This skepticism gave Amazon years to perfect its services without major competition. Early customers were small startups and developers experimenting with new ideas. They loved paying only for what they used, instead of investing thousands in servers that might sit idle. Companies like Netflix discovered they could build global streaming services without owning a single server. Amazon kept adding new services at a relentless pace: storage, databases, analytics tools, machine learning capabilities. Each new offering attracted different types of customers. Government agencies began using AWS for non-sensitive projects. Major corporations started moving their email systems and websites to Amazon's cloud. The economics were transformational. Traditional IT departments spent most of their budgets maintaining existing systems. With AWS, they could redirect that money toward building new applications. Startups could launch global businesses from their laptops. Established companies could experiment with new ideas without massive upfront investments. Microsoft and Google eventually recognized the threat. They launched their own cloud services, but Amazon maintained a commanding lead. Years of experience had taught Amazon which services customers actually wanted. Their sales teams understood how large corporations made technology decisions. By 2010, AWS was generating millions in revenue. More importantly, it was incredibly profitable. Unlike retail operations with thin margins, cloud services generated substantial profits from each customer. These profits funded Amazon's expansion into new markets and allowed the company to undercut competitors in retail. The cloud business created a powerful flywheel effect. More customers meant Amazon could invest more in new services and infrastructure. Better services attracted even more customers. Lower prices made it harder for competitors to catch up. Companies that started with simple storage needs gradually moved their entire operations to AWS. This transformation extended far beyond Amazon. Cloud computing enabled the smartphone app economy, social media platforms, and streaming services. Small companies could compete with giants by accessing the same powerful infrastructure. The entire pace of technological innovation accelerated. By 2015, AWS was powering much of the internet. When Amazon servers experienced problems, thousands of websites and applications went offline. This invisible infrastructure had become essential to modern life. Amazon had built the foundation that supported the digital economy, creating both enormous opportunity and serious responsibility for the future. Part 4. Conflict with publishers and rivals. Amazon's rise to dominance inevitably created friction with established players across multiple industries. By 2012, the company's growing power began triggering serious conflicts that would define the next phase of digital commerce. The first major battleground emerged in book publishing. Amazon had revolutionized reading with the Kindle, but success brought tension with publishers who watched their traditional power slip away. The company demanded lower wholesale prices for ebooks, arguing that cheaper digital books would expand the market for everyone. Publishers resisted, fearing that low ebook prices would destroy their profitable hardcover business. When contract negotiations stalled with Hachette Book Group in 2014, Amazon took drastic action. The company removed buy buttons from Hachette titles, delayed shipments, and stopped accepting pre-orders for upcoming releases. Authors caught in the middle watched their sales plummet overnight. Stephen Colbert publicly criticized Amazon on his television show, calling the tactics gangster-like. The dispute lasted months, with both sides claiming to represent readers' interests. Similar conflicts erupted across other sectors. Apple and Amazon clashed over digital ecosystem control, each wanting customers locked into their platforms. When Amazon refused to sell Apple TV devices that competed with its Fire TV products, Apple retaliated by blocking Amazon Prime Video from its App Store. Google faced its own disputes with Amazon, leading to YouTube being removed from Amazon devices and Amazon products disappearing from Google shopping results. These weren't just business disagreements. They represented fundamental questions about market power in the digital age. Amazon's size allowed it to pressure suppliers in ways smaller competitors couldn't match. When the company negotiated with publishers, electronics manufacturers, or content creators, it held enormous leverage through its massive customer base and distribution network. Regulators began paying closer attention. European authorities launched investigations into Amazon's use of third-party seller data to develop competing products. American politicians questioned whether Amazon's dual role as both marketplace operator and competitor created unfair advantages. The company's practices of undercutting competitors until they withdrew from markets drew particular scrutiny. Competitors responded by forming unusual alliances. Publishers banded together in legal challenges against Amazon's pricing demands. Technology companies that normally competed fiercely began coordinating their responses to Amazon's expansion into new markets. traditional retailers partnered with each other and with tech companies to create alternative platforms and delivery networks. Amazon's response was typically methodical. The company invested heavily in lobbying and public relations, arguing that its practices ultimately benefited consumers through lower prices and better service. Jeff Bezos maintained that Amazon's success came from customer obsession, not market manipulation. These conflicts revealed how Amazon had evolved beyond a simple retailer into a force that could reshape entire industries. The company's decisions about which products to feature, how to price goods, and when to enter new markets now affected millions of businesses and consumers worldwide. The battles also highlighted the complex relationship between innovation and competition in digital markets. Amazon's innovations genuinely improved customer experiences, but they also concentrated enormous power in a single company's hands. Part 5. From business to culture icon. What began as market conflicts over business practices soon blossomed into something far more profound. Amazon was no longer content to simply sell products or host other companies' offerings. The company had bigger dreams, to weave itself into the very fabric of how people lived, entertained themselves, and interacted with technology. The transformation started with Amazon Prime Video, launched as a sweet bonus for shipping members, but rapidly evolving into something much more ambitious. Jeff Bezos watched Netflix spending billions on original content and saw an opportunity. Amazon began producing its own shows and movies, pouring money into high-quality productions that could compete with traditional Hollywood studios. Shows like The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel and The Boys weren't just entertainment. They were Amazon's entry ticket into popular culture conversations. But video content was just the beginning. Amazon's engineers had been working on something even more revolutionary, a voice-controlled assistant that could live in people's homes. When Alexa first spoke from the cylindrical Echo device in 2014, many dismissed it as an expensive novelty. Within years, millions of families were asking Alexa to play music, control lights, order groceries, and answer random questions. The technology was far from perfect, but it was good enough to change how people interacted with their homes. The smart home revolution that followed transformed Amazon from a company people visited to one that lived with them. Alexa could control thermostats, security cameras, and door locks. Amazon partnered with thousands of device manufacturers, creating an ecosystem where everything connected through Amazon's voice platform. Suddenly, Amazon wasn't just delivering packages, it was controlling the lights. Meanwhile, Amazon's delivery network was reaching unprecedented levels of convenience and speed. Same-day delivery in major cities became routine. Amazon trucks appeared on every street, delivery drivers became familiar neighborhood figures, and those distinctive brown boxes piled up on doorsteps across America. The company built massive fulfillment centers closer to population centers and experimented with drone delivery and autonomous vehicles. This logistics revolution changed more than convenience. It reshaped how cities and businesses operated. Traditional retailers struggled to compete with Amazon's delivery speed. Shopping malls emptied as consumers increasingly bought everything online. Urban planners had to account for increased delivery traffic and package theft. Amazon's logistics network became as fundamental to modern commerce as highways or telephone lines. The company's cultural influence grew with each original series, every Alexa interaction, and every package delivered. Amazon wasn't just a business anymore. It had become an integral part of modern American life, touching how people shopped, watched television, controlled their homes, and planned their communities. This cultural integration would soon raise new questions about the appropriate limits of corporate influence in a democratic society. Chapter 5. The Empire at its Peak. Part 1. Jeff Bezos as the world's richest man. By 2018, something extraordinary happened that changed how the world saw Jeff Bezos forever. Amazon's stock price climbed so high that Bezos became the richest person on Earth. His net worth soared past $100 billion, a number so vast it was hard to grasp. Suddenly, the quiet entrepreneur who started selling books from his garage had become the face of extreme wealth in America. This transformation brought intense public attention Bezos had never experienced. Every business decision became front-page news. His personal life faced constant examination. Critics pointed to his enormous wealth, while Amazon warehouse workers earned modest wages and faced demanding conditions. Supporters praised his innovation and job creation. Either way, Bezos could no longer operate in the shadows. The scrutiny intensified during his messy divorce from Mackenzie Scott in 2019. The National Enquirer published private text messages between Bezos and his girlfriend, Lauren Sanchez. Bezos fought back publicly, accusing the tabloid of extortion and blackmail. The divorce settlement gave Mackenzie 25% of their Amazon shares, worth $38 billion. She immediately pledged to give most of it away, creating an interesting contrast with her ex-husband's approach to wealth. Bezos began exploring new frontiers beyond Amazon. His space company, Blue Origin, founded years earlier as a side project, gained serious momentum. He invested billions of his own money into developing rockets and space tourism. Critics called it a billionaire's hobby, while people struggled with basic needs. Bezos defended space exploration as essential for humanity's future, arguing that moving heavy industry off Earth would preserve the planet. His purchase of the Washington Post in 2013 for $250 million took on new significance. Owning a major newspaper while being the world's richest man raised questions about media influence and democratic institutions. Some worried about billionaires controlling information flow. Others praised his hands-off editorial approach and financial investment in quality journalism. Pressure mounted for Bezos to give away more of his fortune. Other billionaires like Warren Buffett and Bill Gates had pledged most of their wealth to charity. Bezos moved slowly, launching the Bezos Earth Fund with $10 billion to fight climate change. Critics said it wasn't enough given his total wealth. Supporters noted the fund's size dwarfed most environmental initiatives. The wealth gap became personal for millions watching Bezos's fortune grow, while their own financial security remained uncertain. He represented both the promise and problems of modern capitalism. His success story inspired entrepreneurs worldwide. His extreme wealth highlighted growing inequality that worried economists and politicians alike. This period marked Bezos's evolution from private business leader to public symbol. Every appearance, every statement, every spending decision carried weight beyond business implications. He had become lightning rod for broader debates about corporate power, wealth concentration, and responsibility in democratic society. Part 2. The HQ2 Spectacle. In September 2017, Amazon made an announcement that would reshape how American cities thought about corporate power. The company declared it would build a second headquarters somewhere in North America, creating 50,000 jobs and investing $5 billion. What followed became the most public and controversial corporate site selection in modern history. Cities across the continent saw opportunity. Amazon promised high-paying tech jobs, economic growth, and prestige. Within weeks, 238 cities submitted proposals. Each bid revealed how desperately communities wanted Amazon's presence. Newark offered $7 billion in tax breaks. Chicago proposed creating an Amazon University. Tucson sent a giant cactus to Amazon's Seattle headquarters. The competition exposed the lengths cities would go to attract major employers. Local leaders crafted elaborate presentations, promising everything from improved infrastructure to expedited permits. Amazon received detailed financial projections, demographic data, and economic analyses from communities nationwide. The company essentially crowdsourced market research while pitting cities against each other. Amazon's selection process resembled a reality show more than traditional business negotiation. The company released shortlists, conducted site visits, and allowed speculation to build for months. Local media in finalist cities provided breathless coverage of every Amazon executive visit. Real estate prices rose in potential locations based purely on rumors. Critics quickly labeled the process a beauty contest that gave Amazon unprecedented leverage. Cities offered tax incentives they would never consider for smaller businesses. The spectacle revealed how much economic power individual corporations wielded over local governments. Amazon was essentially forcing communities to bid against each other using public resources. In November 2018, Amazon announced its decision. The company would split HQ2 between New York City's Long Island City and Arlington, Virginia, near Washington, D.C. New York offered $1.5 billion in incentives. Virginia provided $573 million in tax breaks and grants. The selections shocked many observers who expected Amazon to choose lower-cost locations. Opposition emerged immediately, especially in New York. Local politicians questioned why Amazon needed subsidies when earning billions in profits. Community activists worried about gentrification and rising rents. The company that had become a symbol of extreme wealth was now receiving public money from taxpayers who couldn't afford rising housing costs. Amazon's New York plans unraveled within months. Opposition intensified when details about the incentive package became public. Protesters appeared at community meetings. Local representatives withdrew support. In February 2019, Amazon abruptly canceled its New York plans, citing political opposition. The HQ2 process had backfired spectacularly. Instead of generating goodwill, Amazon appeared tone-deaf and entitled. The company's retreat from New York highlighted how even the world's most powerful corporations could face public resistance when their actions seemed to contradict community interests. The episode became a case study in corporate overreach and democratic accountability. Amazon had demonstrated its economic influence, but also revealed the limits of that power when confronted by organized opposition. The HQ2 spectacle marked a turning point where Amazon's expansion faced serious political resistance for the first time. Part 3. Automation and the Invisible Worker. While Amazon's HQ2 controversy played out in public, a quieter transformation was reshaping the company's foundation. Inside Amazon's vast network of fulfillment centers, machines were steadily taking over tasks that human hands had performed for decades. The company deployed thousands of orange robots across warehouse floors, small mechanical workers that could lift shelves and transport goods with mechanical precision. These robots moved through carefully mapped paths, carrying entire storage units to human workers stationed at packing areas. A worker no longer walked miles through warehouse aisles searching for items. Instead, the robots brought the products directly to them. Amazon celebrated this efficiency gain, claiming workers could now pick items faster while reducing physical strain. But the human workers found themselves caught in an invisible web of surveillance. Every movement was tracked through handheld scanners that recorded their location and productivity. Workers learned they had seconds to complete each task. The system measured how quickly they picked items, how long they spent in the bathroom, even their walking pace between assignments. Sarah, a warehouse worker in Ohio, described the pressure as suffocating. She received automated messages throughout her shift, warning her when her picking rate fell below targets. The computer system knew exactly where she was and what she was doing at every moment. Missing productivity goals could lead to termination through automated decisions made by algorithms, not human supervisors. The physical toll became evident in injury statistics. Amazon's warehouses recorded injury rates significantly higher than other companies in the same industry. Workers complained of repetitive stress injuries, back problems, and exhaustion from maintaining machine-like efficiency for 10-hour shifts. The company's focus on speed created an environment where workers felt like extensions of the automated systems around them. Labor organizers began mobilizing in response to these conditions. Workers at an Alabama facility attempted to form Amazon's first American union, though the effort ultimately failed. Similar organizing attempts emerged at other locations as employees sought collective bargaining power against algorithmic management. Amazon defended its practices by pointing to wage increases and benefits packages. The company argued that automation made work safer by reducing heavy lifting and repetitive tasks. Amazon invested billions in worker training programs and safety improvements, presenting data showing declining injury rates at newer facilities. Yet critics noted a troubling pattern. The company's turnover rates remained extraordinarily high, with some facilities losing their entire workforce annually. This constant churn suggested that Amazon's efficiency gains came at significant human cost. Workers were becoming as replaceable as the machines that increasingly surrounded them. The debate extended beyond Amazon's walls. Policymakers began questioning whether algorithmic management represented the future of work or a dangerous erosion of worker rights. Amazon's warehouse model was spreading across industries, making the company's labor practices a template for automation's broader impact on employment. This tension between human needs and mechanical efficiency would define Amazon's next phase of growth as the company faced increasing scrutiny over its treatment of the workforce powering its digital empire. Part 4. The Alexa Future and Smart Homes. Amazon's warehouse workers were becoming increasingly replaceable, but the company was simultaneously working on technology that would make human interaction more natural and intuitive. While robots sorted packages in fulfillment centers, Amazon's engineers were teaching computers to understand human speech in living rooms across America. The Echo device looked deceptively simple when Amazon introduced it in 2014. A black cylinder sitting quietly on a kitchen counter, waiting for someone to say, "Alexa." Most people dismissed it as another gadget. Amazon's own employees weren't sure it would succeed. The technology seemed too futuristic, too prone to misunderstanding what people actually wanted. Jeff Bezos saw something different. He believed voice would become the most natural way for humans to interact with computers. No typing, no touching screens, no learning complex commands. Just talking, the way people had always communicated. Amazon built the Echo knowing it would lose money on every device sold. The real business wasn't selling speakers, it was creating a new way for people to buy things and access services. The early Echo devices made plenty of mistakes. Alexa ordered dollhouses when children played nearby. She activated during television commercials. She recorded private conversations and sent them to random contacts. Each failure taught Amazon's engineers something new about human speech patterns and expectations. They refined the technology through millions of interactions, turning every Echo owner into an unpaid tester. Amazon made a crucial decision that surprised competitors. Instead of keeping Alexa to themselves, they invited other companies to build Alexa into their own products. Soon, Alexa appeared in car dashboards, refrigerators, and ceiling fans. Amazon provided the brain, but other manufacturers provided the body. This strategy spread Alexa everywhere while making other companies dependent on Amazon's voice platform. The privacy implications were staggering. Alexa devices contained microphones that were always listening, waiting for their wake word. Amazon assured customers that devices only recorded after hearing Alexa, but many people remained skeptical. News stories revealed that human contractors reviewed voice recordings to improve the system. The convenience of voice control came with the cost of constant surveillance. Google and Apple scrambled to catch up. Google launched its own smart speakers, while Apple introduced Siri-powered HomePods. The competition validated Amazon's vision, but it also raised troubling questions about market power. A few technology giants were positioning themselves to control how people accessed information and services in their own homes. Amazon's voice computing strategy represented something larger than smart speakers. The company envisioned ambient computing, technology seamlessly woven into daily life, responding to natural speech without visible interfaces. This vision promised unprecedented convenience while concentrating enormous power in Amazon's hands. The company that started by selling books was now teaching computers to understand human language, positioning itself as the intermediary between people and the digital world in their most private spaces. Part 5. The Pandemic Surge. When COVID-19 swept across the world in March 2020, Amazon faced a transformation unlike anything in its history. What had been a convenient shopping option suddenly became a lifeline for millions trapped in their homes. Within days of lockdown orders, the company watched its systems buckle under pressure that no amount of planning could have anticipated. The numbers told an impossible story. Orders flooded in at rates typically seen only during peak holiday seasons. Except this peak had no end date. Essential items vanished from shelves within hours. Hand sanitizer, cleaning supplies, toilet paper, and basic groceries became harder to find than rare collectibles. Amazon's sophisticated prediction algorithms, trained on decades of shopping patterns, became useless overnight as human behavior shifted dramatically. Jeff Wilke, who ran Amazon's consumer business, found himself managing what felt like a wartime logistics operation. The company made an unprecedented decision to prioritize essential goods over everything else. Items that had built Amazon's reputation, books, electronics, and countless consumer products, were suddenly deprioritized in favor of medical supplies and household necessities. This move frustrated many customers, but reflected the gravity of the moment. Amazon's fulfillment centers became pressure cookers of activity and anxiety. Workers who had previously processed typical e-commerce orders now handled items that people desperately needed to survive. The weight of responsibility was immense, but so was the fear. These warehouses, designed for efficiency rather than social distancing, suddenly needed complete operational overhauls while maintaining breakneck speed. The company embarked on the largest hiring spree in corporate history. Within months, Amazon added over 400,000 workers to its workforce. New employees arrived for jobs that had fundamentally changed since the job postings were created. Training programs were compressed, safety protocols invented in real time, and managers juggled impossible demands for both speed and worker protection. Every aspect of operations required reinvention. Temperature checks became routine. Workstations were spaced apart. Cleaning protocols multiplied. Amazon spent billions on safety measures, installing hand-washing stations, distributing masks, and redesigning workflows to reduce contact between workers. Yet criticism mounted as workers fell ill and some died from the virus. The moral complexity was inescapable. While small businesses shuttered and unemployment soared, Amazon's stock price climbed relentlessly. The company's success during the pandemic made Jeff Bezos' wealth grow by tens of billions of dollars. Critics pointed to this stark contrast, essential workers risking their health for wages that paled compared to executive compensation and shareholder returns. Amazon Web Services experienced its own surge as businesses rushed to move operations online. Video conferencing, remote work tools, and streaming services all demanded more computing power. The cloud infrastructure that Amazon had built over the previous decade suddenly carried much of the world's digital activity. Schools, governments, and healthcare systems relied on AWS to function during the crisis. The pandemic revealed Amazon's true position in the modern economy. What began as an online bookstore had evolved into infrastructure as essential as electricity or water. This realization brought both validation and scrutiny that would reshape how society viewed the company's power and responsibility in the years ahead. Chapter 6: Transition of Power, Part 1: Bezos leaves the throne. In February 2021, Jeff Bezos made an announcement that shook the business world. After 27 years of building Amazon from a garage startup into a global giant, he would step down as CEO. The man who had obsessed over every detail, from packaging tape to customer emails, was finally ready to hand over daily control. Bezos had been planning this transition for months. At 57, he wanted to focus on bigger picture projects. Blue Origin, his space company, needed more attention. The Bezos Earth Fund required his personal involvement to tackle climate change. These ventures excited him in ways that quarterly earnings calls no longer did. He would remain as executive chairman, keeping oversight of major decisions while freeing himself from operational demands. The choice of successor surprised few insiders. Andy Jassy had run Amazon Web Services since its early days, transforming it from an internal project into a dominant cloud computing platform. Where Bezos could be demanding and detail-oriented, Jassy brought calm leadership and technical depth. He understood both Amazon's culture and its future challenges. Employees respected his track record of building AWS into Amazon's most profitable division. The transition unfolded carefully over several months. Bezos spent time with Jassy reviewing long-term strategies and key relationships. They discussed Amazon's expansion into healthcare, grocery delivery, and entertainment. Jassy shadowed Bezos in important meetings, learning the nuances of dealing with regulators, investors, and world leaders. This wasn't a sudden handoff, but a methodical transfer of knowledge and responsibility. When Jassy officially took control in July 2021, Amazon's culture remained largely unchanged. The company's famous leadership principles stayed intact. Customer obsession continued driving decisions. The pace of innovation maintained its intensity, yet subtle shifts began appearing. Jassy focused more on streamlining operations and improving efficiency. He placed greater emphasis on employee satisfaction and workplace conditions, areas where Amazon faced growing criticism. Bezos retained significant influence through his chairman role and 40% voting control of company shares. He still attended board meetings and weighed in on major acquisitions. However, day-to-day decisions now flowed through Jassy and his leadership team. This represented Amazon's evolution from founder-led startup to mature corporation with institutional leadership. The transition reflected broader changes in how Amazon saw itself. No longer the scrappy underdog challenging established retailers, it had become the establishment that others sought to challenge. Jassy inherited not just a business empire, but also mounting regulatory scrutiny, competitive pressure, and public questioning about corporate power. His leadership would be tested by forces that Bezos had largely avoided during Amazon's earlier growth years. This changing of the guard marked the end of the Bezos era while beginning Amazon's next chapter under new leadership. Part 2. Amazon as Infrastructure. Jassy stepped into a company that had grown far beyond selling books and consumer goods. By 2025, Amazon had become the invisible foundation supporting much of the modern economy. Small businesses selling handmade crafts relied on Amazon's warehouses to store and ship their products. Major corporations trusted AWS data centers to run their most critical applications. Even competitors used Amazon's logistics network when their own systems fell short. The numbers told a striking story. AWS powered nearly half of all internet traffic during peak hours. Amazon's fulfillment centers processed millions of packages daily for businesses that had never sold directly to consumers before. The company's payment systems handled transactions worth billions each week. These services had become as essential as electricity or telephone networks once were. This transformation happened gradually, almost without notice. Companies started small, using Amazon's marketplace to reach new customers or AWS to avoid building expensive data centers. What began as convenience became dependency. Businesses discovered they couldn't easily switch to alternatives without major disruption and cost. Amazon's scale and integration made it increasingly difficult for competitors to match its capabilities. The marketplace exemplified this dynamic. Small sellers gained access to Amazon's vast customer base and sophisticated logistics network. They could launch products without building warehouses or hiring shipping staff. But success on Amazon meant following its rules, paying its fees, and competing against Amazon's own products. Some sellers found their successful products mysteriously facing new competition from Amazon-branded alternatives using similar designs. AWS created even deeper dependencies. Companies moved their entire digital operations to Amazon's cloud, from customer databases to financial systems. This shift offered flexibility and cost savings, but switching cloud providers became enormously complex and expensive. Technical teams built their skills around Amazon's specific tools and services, making alternative platforms seem foreign and risky. The logistics network reached into every corner of commerce. Amazon's delivery trucks became as common as postal vehicles in many neighborhoods. Its warehouses employed hundreds of thousands of workers in communities across the country. Local economies began depending on Amazon's employment and tax revenue. Even traditional retailers started using Amazon's shipping services when their own delivery networks couldn't compete. This infrastructure role brought new responsibilities and risks. When Amazon's servers went down, hundreds of websites and apps stopped working. When warehouse workers went on strike, small businesses couldn't ship their products. The company's decisions about which products to promote or ban affected entire industries. Amazon had become too important to fail, but unlike banks or utilities, it operated with minimal government oversight. Regulators worldwide began questioning whether such concentrated power served the public interest. They worried about fair competition when the same company controlled both the marketplace and competed within it. They studied whether breaking up Amazon or regulating it like a public utility might restore competitive balance while preserving the benefits of its efficient systems. Part 3. Regulators and rivals push back. By 2020, government officials across the globe began asking hard questions about Amazon's growing influence. The European Union launched formal investigations into the company's dual role as both marketplace operator and competitor to sellers using its platform. Brussels regulators wanted to know if Amazon used private seller data to create competing products, giving itself an unfair advantage. The company's practice of promoting its own brands over third-party sellers caught particular attention. In Washington, Congress summoned Jeff Bezos alongside other tech leaders for televised hearings. Lawmakers grilled him about Amazon's treatment of small businesses and whether the company abused its market position. Internal emails revealed how Amazon employees tracked competitor pricing and used seller data to develop private label products. The company argued this was normal business practice, but critics called it predatory behavior. The Federal Trade Commission and state attorneys general opened their own investigations. They examined Amazon's acquisition strategy, questioning whether the company bought potential competitors to eliminate threats rather than improve services. The 2017 Whole Foods purchase and numerous smaller acquisitions faced retroactive scrutiny. Regulators wondered if they had been too permissive in allowing Amazon's expansion. Meanwhile, traditional retailers fought back with massive investments. Walmart poured billions into online infrastructure, trying to match Amazon's delivery speed and product selection. Target redesigned its stores as fulfillment centers, offering same-day pickup and delivery. These companies realized they couldn't compete by playing defense anymore. New competitors emerged in Amazon's core markets. Shopify empowered millions of merchants to build independent online stores, reducing dependence on Amazon's marketplace. TikTok and Instagram integrated shopping features, creating alternative paths for product discovery. Specialized platforms like Chewy in pet supplies and Wayfair in furniture carved out profitable niches. Amazon responded with legal teams and public relations campaigns. The company published data showing how it helped small businesses reach customers worldwide. It emphasized job creation and economic benefits to local communities. Amazon argued that breaking up successful companies would hurt consumers and American competitiveness against Chinese tech giants. Behind closed doors, regulatory pressure forced Amazon to change some practices. The company agreed to stop using seller data for private label development in Europe. It modified search algorithms to reduce bias toward its own products. Amazon created separate teams for marketplace operations and private brands to avoid conflicts of interest. The investigations revealed the complexity of modern business regulation. Amazon operated across dozens of industries and countries, making oversight challenging. Simple solutions like breaking up the company faced practical obstacles, since customers valued the integrated experience of shopping, shipping, and cloud services. These regulatory battles marked a turning point. Amazon could no longer expand unchecked into new markets without facing scrutiny. The company now needed to consider antitrust implications for every major decision. This new reality would force Amazon to grow more carefully, while competitors seized opportunities in an increasingly watched marketplace. Part 4. Expanding Horizons: Healthcare, Space, and Streaming Wars. Amazon's aggressive push into industries far removed from retail showed no signs of slowing, even as regulators watched more closely. The company's leadership saw healthcare as a massive opportunity to apply their customer-obsessed approach to an industry plagued by inefficiency. Amazon Care launched in 2019 as a telehealth service, initially serving Amazon's own employees before expanding to other businesses. Patients could video chat with doctors, get prescriptions delivered, and have nurses visit their homes for tests and treatments. The healthcare bet grew larger when Amazon announced plans to acquire One Medical, a chain of primary care clinics, for nearly $4 billion in 2022. This move signaled Amazon's intention to own physical healthcare infrastructure, not just provide digital services. Traditional healthcare providers worried about Amazon's data advantages and ability to integrate medical care with its existing services. A patient could theoretically consult a doctor through Amazon Care, get medication delivered through Amazon Pharmacy, and track their health data through Alexa devices. Meanwhile, Jeff Bezos pursued his childhood dream of space exploration through Blue Origin, the rocket company he founded in 2000. While SpaceX grabbed headlines with dramatic launches and Mars missions, Blue Origin focused on reusable rockets designed for space tourism and satellite deployment. Bezos famously took a brief trip to space in 2021, demonstrating confidence in his company's technology. Amazon separately planned Project Kuiper, a network of over 3,000 satellites intended to provide high-speed internet globally, directly competing with SpaceX's Starlink constellation. The entertainment battlefield proved equally expensive and competitive. Amazon poured billions into Prime Video original content, producing shows like The Boys and The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel to attract subscribers and justify Prime membership fees. The company competed directly with Netflix, Disney+, and HBO Max for viewers' attention and acclaimed creators. Amazon's advantage lay in bundling video streaming with free shipping and other Prime benefits, making it harder for customers to cancel, even if they preferred competitors' shows. These diverse ventures shared common threads with Amazon's earlier expansions. Each targeted industries with established players that Amazon believed it could serve better through technology and customer focus. Healthcare delivery, space services, and entertainment distribution all offered opportunities to leverage Amazon's existing capabilities in logistics, cloud computing, and data analysis. The investments required enormous capital and patience, with uncertain returns. Healthcare regulations complicated Amazon's medical ambitions, while space projects demanded years of development before generating revenue. Streaming content faced the challenge of standing out in an increasingly crowded market, where subscribers could easily switch between services. These bold moves into new territories demonstrated Amazon's continued willingness to experiment and take risks, even as regulatory pressure mounted. The company's leadership believed diversification would fuel future growth as traditional retail faced saturation. However, spreading resources across so many different industries also created new vulnerabilities and complexity that would test Amazon's management capabilities in unexpected ways. Part 5. The Empire in Question. By 2025, Amazon found itself at the center of a fierce debate that echoed across boardrooms, political chambers, and kitchen tables worldwide. The company that once sold books from a garage now controlled the digital infrastructure that kept modern life running. Yet this very success had made it a target for growing public concern about corporate power. Critics pointed to troubling statistics. Amazon controlled nearly 40% of all online retail sales in the United States. Its cloud computing division powered everything from Netflix to government agencies. Small businesses depended on its platform to reach customers, yet complained about sudden policy changes that could destroy their livelihoods overnight. Workers in fulfillment centers faced demanding quotas while the company fought unionization efforts. Environmental groups questioned whether Amazon's carbon footprint matched its climate pledges. The regulatory walls were closing in from multiple directions. European authorities had already fined the company billions for data privacy violations and anti-competitive practices. American lawmakers from both parties called for breaking up big tech companies. State attorneys general launched investigations into everything from pricing algorithms to working conditions. Each probe revealed new concerns about how much control one company should wield over commerce and information. Amazon's response mixed defiance with adaptation. Company executives testified before Congress, arguing that competition remained fierce and that Amazon's success benefited consumers through lower prices and faster delivery. Behind the scenes, the company quietly adjusted practices, improved worker benefits, and invested heavily in renewable energy projects. Leadership knew that public opinion mattered as much as legal battles. The company's sustainability initiatives represented both genuine commitment and strategic necessity. Amazon pledged to reach net zero carbon emissions by 2040, ordering thousands of electric delivery vehicles and building solar farms across multiple continents. These investments cost billions, but also served as insurance against future regulations and changing consumer preferences. Worker relations remained a persistent challenge. While Amazon raised minimum wages and expanded benefits packages, labor organizers continued pushing for union recognition. High-profile organizing drives at warehouses in Alabama and New York attracted national attention, forcing the company to defend its employment practices publicly. Each conflict damaged Amazon's reputation while strengthening calls for regulatory intervention. The fundamental question haunting Amazon's future was whether a company could grow so large and essential that it became incompatible with competitive markets. Some economists argued for treating Amazon like a public utility, subjecting it to strict oversight in exchange for continued operation. Others pushed for structural separation, forcing the company to choose between running a marketplace and competing on that same platform. As Amazon entered its fourth decade, the path forward remained uncertain. The company possessed enormous resources and innovative capabilities, yet faced mounting pressure to prove that concentrated corporate power could serve broader public interests. The decisions made in boardrooms and regulatory offices would determine whether Amazon's empire would adapt, fragment, or transform into something entirely different.